French actress Brigitte Bardot in her younger years during the 1940s. Bardot began as a teenage model before starring in And God Created Woman in 1956, a film that transformed her into an international symbol and helped redefine standards of sexuality in post-war European cinema across the continent. Helen Keller photographed in 1967. Deaf and blind from early childhood, Keller became a writer, lecturer, and political activist, being the first deaf-blind person to earn a university degree in the United States. She advocated for women's suffrage, labor rights, and pacifism for decades of public life. Prince Alexander of Serbia observes the front lines at Mount Chaganj on the Macedonian front in Salonika during the First World War. The future King Alexander I personally commanded Serbian troops in the campaign that resulted in the country's liberation and the formation of the Kingdom of Yugoslavia in 1918. Jim Henson at 19 years old in 1955. That year, the young man created Sam and Friends, his first television program where the first version of Kermit the Frog would appear. Henson would revolutionize children's entertainment with The Muppets and Sesame Street, shaping entire generations worldwide. Rocky Marciano with several British boxers at the London Hilton Hotel in 1965, with Henry Cooper in the background. Marciano was the only heavyweight champion to retire undefeated, with 49 wins in 49 fights. Cooper was the biggest name in British boxing and had knocked Muhammad Ali down 2 years earlier. The Rap Party for Sharp's Company, with Lyndon Davies, Sean Bean, Elizabeth Hurley, and Scott Cleverdon. The British series about the Napoleonic Wars established Sean Bean in the role of Rifleman Richard Sharp, becoming one of the greatest television successes in the United Kingdom during the 1990s. A photograph from 1967, the year Cool Hand Luke reached cinemas and parking meters lined American streets. The film starring Paul Newman became a classic about individual rebellion against authoritarian systems, and its famous parking meter destruction scene became a symbol of the era's counterculture. Hillary and Bill Clinton on their wedding day, October 11, 1975. The couple met at Yale Law School and married in the living room of their home in Fayetteville, Arkansas. Bill would be elected governor of the state 3 years later, beginning the trajectory that would eventually lead them to the White House. A London baker sells a classic cottage loaf from the back of his cart for 6 pence in 1925. Cart deliveries were an essential part of British urban life until the mid-20th century, when motorized vehicles and supermarkets radically transformed the food trade across the entire country. The Pakistani sibling duo Nazia and Zoheb Hassan in the 1980s. The two revolutionized South Asian pop music with the album Disco Diwane, which became the best-selling Asian pop record of its era. Nazia was Pakistan's first major female pop star and died tragically young in the year 2000. Suzi Quatro in the 1970s and in recent times. The American bassist and singer based in the United Kingdom was a pioneer in fronting a rock band as a female instrumentalist, paving the way for artists like Joan Jett and Chrissie Hynde. Her leather jumpsuit became a defining image of the glam rock era. An attendant on duty at the Mayakovskaya metro station, photographed by Boris Kavashkin in Moscow in 1980. Opened in 1938, Mayakovskaya is considered one of the most beautiful stations in the world, with stainless steel columns and ceiling mosaics depicting the Soviet sky at different hours of the day. Evander Holyfield after knocking out Mike Tyson in 1996. Considered a heavy underdog by bookmakers, Holyfield defeated Tyson in the 11th round in one of the greatest upsets in boxing history. The rematch the following year would end with Tyson's infamous bite of his opponent's ear in the ring. Diego Maradona and Michel Platini before Platini's farewell match in Nancy, France in 1988. The two were considered the greatest players of their generation. Platini had won 3 consecutive Ballon d'Or and was retiring at 32, while Maradona was living the peak of his career at Napoli in Italy. Charlie Sheen and Kerry Green photographed in 1987. Sheen was experiencing the start of his Hollywood ascent after Platoon and Wall Street, while Green had distinguished herself in The Goonies and Lucas. The two were part of the generation of young actors who would dominate late 1980s American cinema. Bette Davis and Leslie Howard in The Petrified Forest, a 1936 Warner Brothers production. The film also marked Humphrey Bogart's breakthrough in a prominent role as gangster Duke Manty. Howard personally demanded that Bogart be cast, a gesture that definitively launched his legendary Hollywood career. The last public appearance of actress and singer Pepa Flores before retiring to become a pizza maker in Malaga. Known as Marisol, she was the biggest child star of Francoist Spain and later publicly broke with that image, abandoning her artistic career while still relatively young and out of the spotlight. Giorgio Moroder, photographed in 1978. The Italian producer revolutionized popular music by creating, with Donna Summer, the synthesized foundation of I Feel Love, a track that practically invented electronic dance music. Moroder would win 3 Academy Awards and influence decades of music production. Elvis Presley and Priscilla Presley on their wedding day, May 1, 1967. The ceremony was held at the Aladdin Hotel in Las Vegas and lasted only 8 minutes. The couple had a daughter, Lisa Marie, 9 months later, and would divorce in 1973 after years of increasing personal and emotional distance. A Chicago parking enforcement officer writes a ticket beside a parked car. The profession was open to women in many American cities beginning in the 1960s, becoming one of the first uniformed municipal roles with a significant female presence visible on the streets of major urban centers. British actress Sari Maritza, photographed in the 1930s. Maritza was promoted by Hollywood studios as a new international star, but her American film career lasted only a few years. She abandoned acting in 1934 and spent the remainder of her life far from the spotlight of the entertainment industry. Jeff Goldblum, at 32 years old, in April 1985. The actor had been building a solid career in memorable supporting roles when he starred in David Cronenberg's The Fly the following year. His peculiar diction and eccentric presence would transform him into one of the most imitated actors of his generation. Charles Sue Lee is released from prison in 1983 after being wrongfully convicted. Imprisoned for a murder he did not commit in San Francisco, his case mobilized the Asian American community and became a landmark in the struggle for racial justice, revealing serious failures in the American judicial system. A woman in the doorway of a log cabin in Colorado around 1895. Women settlers of the American West faced extreme isolation, harsh winters, and exhausting physical labor. Many managed homesteads entirely alone, especially after widowhood, defying the rigid gender norms of the era in which they lived. A young George Benson in the late 1960s. The guitarist began as a jazz prodigy, playing with Jack McDuff while still a teenager. In the 1970s, he would achieve massive success by incorporating vocals and elements of soul and pop, becoming one of the best-selling and most awarded artists of his generation. The pioneering Ida Lupino, an actress who became a director, on set with Richard Boone around 1960. Lupino was virtually the only woman directing films in Hollywood during the 1950s, addressing then-taboo subjects such as rape, unwed pregnancy, and bigamy with courage that was exceedingly rare for the era. The Young Lords in East Harlem in 1970. The organization, formed by young Puerto Ricans, combined community activism and radical politics, providing health services, breakfast programs for children, and garbage collection in neglected neighborhoods. They were directly inspired by the Black Panther Party. Kent Green, YMCA youth worker and former Golden Gloves winner with his wife and 2 fans. The Golden Gloves program trained generations of amateur boxers across the United States, and many champions used the experience to later work with young people in underserved urban communities nationwide. Child singers and actresses Pepa Flores and Rocío Dúrcal play together around 1960. The two were the biggest child stars of Spanish cinema during that decade. Dúrcal would later become an enormous success in Mexican music, while Flores would abandon her artistic career while still relatively young. Heidi Becker at age 20 in 1961. The portrait captures the characteristic style of the early 1960s, a transitional period between the conservative aesthetic of the post-war years and the cultural explosion that would completely transform Western fashion, music, and customs in the latter half of that decade. Japanese actor and singer Takuya Kimura, photographed in 1996. A member of the group SMAP, Kimura was for decades the most popular man in Japan, dominating television, music, and advertising. His influence on Japanese men's fashion was so great that products he wore would sell out almost immediately. Greg Page, a sparring partner to both Muhammad Ali and Mike Tyson in the 1980s. Page briefly held the WBA World Heavyweight title in 1984. His career ended tragically in 2001 when he suffered severe brain injuries in a bout and remained partially paralyzed until his death several years afterward. Jean Cocteau on the set of his film Testament of Orpheus in 1960. The French poet, playwright, and filmmaker was a central figure of the European avant-garde, moving between literature, visual arts, and cinema. This was his final feature film, a deeply autobiographical and dreamlike work of great personal significance. June 1968, James Brown in South Vietnam to perform for American troops at Long Binh Post, the Army's main logistical base in the country. Brown funded part of the trip from his own pocket and insisted on playing for black soldiers who felt ignored by the official entertainment tours of the armed forces. A barbershop in Bukhara, Uzbekistan, in the early 1900s. Bukhara was one of the great historical centers of the Silk Road and remained at the time under Russian imperial control as a vassal emirate. The city preserved millennia-old cultural traditions that would survive the later Sovietization of the region. Carlo Pedersoli, known as Bud Spencer, the famous Italian spaghetti western actor. Before cinema, Pedersoli was an Olympic swimmer and the first Italian to complete the 100-meter freestyle in under a minute. His partnership with Terence Hill produced action comedies beloved throughout the entire world. The Ukrainian Bandura trio Dniprianka on the cover of Ogonyok magazine in October 1959. The bandura is Ukraine's national instrument, a kind of multi-stringed zither with centuries of tradition. During the Soviet period, its practice was simultaneously promoted and carefully controlled by state authorities. The band Descendants live in 1981. Formed in California, the group was fundamental in creating pop-punk, mixing hardcore speed with sugary melodies and lyrics about coffee, food, and adolescent frustration. Their influence on 1990s bands, such as Blink-182 and Green Day, was absolutely decisive. Willie Nelson, John Belushi, and a Hells Angels member at the legendary Lone Star Cafe in New York around 1980. The club was an improbable meeting point between the country scene and the world of New York rock and comedy, bringing together figures from completely distinct universes under one roof. Sylvester Stallone outside his Malibu home in 1979. The actor was living the height of success after Rocky and its first sequel, having gone from an unknown and broke screenwriter to one of Hollywood's most powerful names in just 3 years, with rare creative control over his own film projects. Dolores Erickson, the cover model of Herb Alpert's Whipped Cream and Other Delights, pictured today and in 1965. The cover became one of the most famous in music history. Erickson was 3 months pregnant during the shoot, and most of the cream in the image was actually shaving foam rather than whipped cream. Keanu Reeves visits his paternal grandmother in Hawaii in 1996. The actor, of Hawaiian, Chinese, and English descent on his father's side, maintained family ties to the islands. During that period, he was already a major star after Speed, but maintained a notably discreet and reserved personal profile. Tiffany and Debbie Gibson photographed in 1989. The two were the biggest rivals in American teen pop at the time, both 19 years old with multiple chart hits. The press intensively cultivated the rivalry between them, even though the two maintained a cordial personal relationship away from the spotlight. James Dean at a gas station with his silver Porsche 550 Spider, which he nicknamed Little Bastard, just hours before his death. The accident occurred on September 30, 1955 in California, when the actor was only 24 years old and had completed filming on only 3 feature-length motion pictures. Kalpana Chawla, the first Indian woman in space, with her husband in 1997. Born in Karnal, India, she became a naturalized American citizen and first flew aboard the space shuttle Columbia. She died in 2003 in the Columbia disaster, along with the entire crew, during re-entry into Earth's atmosphere. Demi Moore and Bruce Willis at the opening of Planet Hollywood in Paris in 1995, photographed by Patrice Picot. The couple was among Hollywood's most visible and were partners in the themed restaurant chain, alongside Schwarzenegger and Stallone. Moore was then the highest-paid actress in the world. Linda Carter, actress and singer, pictured in 1971, 5 years before starring in the Wonder Woman series. Before Hollywood, Carter was a rock band singer and won the Miss World USA pageant in 1972. Her portrayal of the heroine remains definitive for several generations of devoted fans worldwide. Actress and martial artist Yukari Oshima photographed in the 1990s. Born in Japan, Oshima built her career in Hong Kong action cinema, becoming one of the great female stars of the genre known as Girls with Guns, alongside celebrated names such as Michelle Yeoh and Cynthia Rothrock during that period. An insert archived inside the album Delusions of Banjer by the band Bad Livers from 1992. The Texas group mixed traditional bluegrass with punk and irreverent humor, creating an unclassifiable sound. The debut album was produced by Paul Leary, guitarist of the Butthole Surfers, reinforcing that improbable fusion. Japanese artist Akihiro Miwa photographed in the 1960s. A singer, actor, and openly homosexual public figure in a deeply conservative society, Miwa challenged gender norms for decades and became one of the most revered and enduring personalities in contemporary Japanese popular culture. King Constantine I of Greece and Kaiser Wilhelm II of Germany share a moment as brothers-in-law in 1913. Constantine was married to Sophia of Prussia, the Kaiser's sister. This family bond would generate enormous suspicion during the First World War and ultimately cost the Greek monarch his throne. Jamie Lee Curtis photographed in the 1970s. Daughter of Tony Curtis and Janet Leigh, she debuted in cinema in John Carpenter's Halloween in 1978, becoming the definitive scream queen of the genre. She would later expand into comedy and drama, winning an Academy Award more than 4 decades afterward. A photograph from the 1994 film premiere that made Elizabeth Hurley world famous. The black Versace dress, held together with safety pins, worn at the premiere of 4 Weddings and a Funeral, dominated British headlines and transformed the actress into an international celebrity overnight. Jessica Biel in 1999. The actress had become known through the series Seventh Heaven, which began when she was only 14 years old. During that period, she started seeking film roles that would distance her from the wholesome daughter image built by television, a transition that took several years. On October 17, 1999, at the No Mercy event, China became the only woman in history to win the WWE Intercontinental Championship. Joanie Laurer broke barriers by competing directly against men in professional wrestling, redefining the role of women within that entire sports entertainment universe.